third is Suarez. Goodell comes running in. He's under it, makes the catch. Here's the throw to the plate. It's in the air. He is out! Cameron Rick hangs on! Oh, man, what a play! Deep to right field. Way up there and way second down,
And welcome back to the Stupid Money Podcast. It's been 2 weeks since we did an episode, and a lot has gone on, honestly. So the Phillies continued their homestand, which they had a off day in the middle of a homestand, which I'm not sure I ever saw before. That was a little weird, but they played the Cardinals, swept them, then took 2 out of 3 from the Angels. Really should have swept them, honestly, too. Bryce Harper hits his 300th career home run on the final game there, a go-ahead 2-run homer in the bottom of the 8th, and Kimbrel blew in the 9th. And look, they were due to lose a game. I don't think it was the loss that made me mad. It was the fact that Harper hit his 300th go-ahead, and they ruined it, and it aggravated the hell out of me. They then went on the road. Milwaukee gave them a lot of trouble. They blew a game, which they had another late lead in. Then they kind of got carved up the next 2 days, but they were able to pull out the Sunday game after being no-hit for 6 innings. So that was impressive. And then went to San Diego, took 2 out of 3 there. Pretty good series offensively outside the one game where they got shut out. They were kind of due to get shut out. But yeah, at the end of the day, the Phillies still have the number 1 wild card spot, but it has kind of shrunk a little bit. I mean, they're 77 and 62. The Cubs are a game and a half back, but remember, it's actually 2.5 back because the Phillies have the tiebreaker over them from the season series. So, Alex, I mean, Trey Turner, Bryce Harper carried this team at home, and then Bryce kind of tampered off on the road, had to shave the beard to get out of the 0 for 20. Trey had to go home because his wife had a kid. So there's a lot going on here, but those two and Schwarber really have gotten it going, and we're kind of seeing the potential of the offense we thought we would see when they signed Turner back in December.
Yeah. Bryce, this has really been like his first scuffle, honestly, since he came back, kind of.
Right.
The first game back, he was against the Dodgers, and I think it was now suspended Julio Urias, but he went 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts and really just looked awful. And then the next day he went 4 for 5, and then since then, blink, and he's still hitting 300 in 295 or whatever in the beginning of September. You get to the point where you don't expect it to ever be where Bryce Harper has an 0 for 16 or 0 for 20 road trip like he was.
Yeah.
And it's okay, you know he'll be fine eventually. And I think as a fan base, we could all kind of get behind the point where Bryce Harper will be 0 for 50, and if he's up in a big spot, he's going to come through no matter what. We kind of saw that yesterday in the last game in San Diego. It was 1-0 with 2 outs, I think, in the 4th. And at this point, they were leaving guys on base the last 2 days, kind of. And he just roped a double in the gap. It's yeah, of course he did.
Yeah.
It just he rises up to the occasion. That's what you want your $330 million superstar to do. And it seems like he's always doing it. And Turner's starting to do it too. The guy had 7, 8 home runs in his last 10 games, 7 home runs in his last 9 games, something like that. And a lot of them were in big spots. The first game in Milwaukee, I know you said Milwaukee gave him some trouble. Realistically, they gave themselves some trouble in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
But Turner had a big home run in that game to go ahead in the 8th, I think, 7th or 8th. So he's getting going. I'm interested to see if the dad strength combined with the ovation powers, see what that looks like. If that kind of they go together, if they cancel one another out, hopefully they go together. And blink, and 2 weeks ago Schwarber was hitting 184, and now he's hitting 197, and he's 4 off the lead or 5 off Matt Olson for the national lead in homers.
He's getting close to him, yeah.
It's he kind of had his typical June months in August this year, which nobody really looked at like was happening. Like I feel like there were the Kyle Schwarber home runs, but there was no like the this is June post like you get every June when he hits one home run. But he kind of did like the same exact thing. Like they broke the franchise home run records for a month by 4, 5.
It might have been more. It might have been 8. I think
wow.
it was like 51, and they hit 59.
I know they tied it on like the 26th or the 27th, and then they had 3 games after that where they scored 6, 12, and 8. So they definitely.
I think it was like at least 5. I feel like 5 or 8 more. Yeah.
So it was a great month for the offense. That's kind of what we expected at the start of the season.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we talked about it on the podcast, but we talked about it a while ago. They were on pace for. It seemed like the home runs were down as a team, but when you looked at the numbers, they were on pace for 170. Last year they hit 200, and Rhys Hoskins hit 30. So like the team was kind of doing what you expected them to do based on last year. Obviously, Trey Turner, you expected a little bit more at the time, but they kind of made up for it in August, and we kind of got what we were expecting to get from the start of the season.
Yeah, so I know I tweeted this right at the beginning of June. They were 21st in home runs at the beginning of June. They're now 12th in Major League Baseball at home runs. So they really have gotten it going. And the thing with Trey Turner is he's actually on pace for one of his better offensive years if you throw out average. I think he's on pace for like the second most home runs he's ever hit in a year, the third most doubles he's ever hit in a year,
I think
the second most RBIs.
I think he just tied 22 is like his second best season as far as a home run total, and he's at 22.
Yeah, it's 28 is his high. Yeah.
I think we as Philadelphia fans just need to accept that batting average doesn't always matter.
Yeah. And if he gets 11 more RBIs, it'll be the second most. He's not going to get 100 like he had last year, but he's 11 away from his second most productive runs batted in total ever too. So.
And like he's not going to get 100, but if you look at the lineup as a whole, like if you would have flipped Turner and Bohm's RBI totals, it's like that makes sense.
Right.
But like you don't expect Alec Bohm to go for 100 RBIs, and I mean there's not a great chance, but there's a good it's in the realm of possibility that Bohm hits 20 home runs. Like that's what we've been asking him to do. Obviously, it seems to come and go, the power with him, and he's not always. I mean, he leads the team in double plays. Well, maybe not after Castellanos the other night, but like the power kind of comes and goes with him, and it's not always the poolside lift that we need. But like the guy's a professional hitter, and he still might hit 20 home runs. Like I think we've kind of talked about this, like Kevin Long showing him the Washington Nationals Anthony Rendon tape. Like this is what I did with him. This is what I want to do with you. It seems like it's a slow progression, but we're starting to kind of get there with him.
Yeah.
I don't think we wanted it to take 3 years like it has,
right.
But slowly but surely, he's starting to become a guy where it's like, you don't want your corner guy to be an all singles hitter, but if you're getting 290 to 300 with the home runs going up and the strikeout rate going down and the walk rate going up like it has been, I think we'd all be pretty happy with that with the third overall pick from 2017 or whatever it was.
Yeah, I mean, you drive in 100. I don't know. These people are trying to say RBI was an overrated stat. I think it's the only stat that really matters because it means you're producing. So I mean, as long as you get up there, that's what you want. I hope he doesn't turn into Angels Anthony Rendon though. Really impressive, honestly. Anthony Rendon's last season with the Nationals, his 2019 stats. He has more home runs, doubles, and RBIs in that season than he does the entire length of his Angels contract so far, which is crazy. That when I read, like I clicked on his profile and I saw that, I was like counting up the stats. I was like, I don't know how that's possible, but that's the Angels for you. Yeah, so offense pretty good. Like you mentioned though, Nick Castellanos was recorded 6 outs on 4 pitches the other day, which was funny but bad at the same time. He's been scuffling a little bit, but if they could get him going.
I saw a tweet. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, and I don't remember who tweeted it out, but it was basically like we talked about the deadline. Oh, we want a bat. We want a bat.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the articles or the news reporters were like, oh, the Phillies offense or the Phillies front office believes that there's no need to get a bat because the stars haven't been producing like stars. And if you get the power back with Harper, you get Turner going like Trey Turner, you get Schwarber kind of returning to the batting card average, like you will have your trade deadline acquisitions with bats. And looking at the numbers, I think out of all like the core guys that we expected, Castellanos was the only one with the WRC plus of under 100, and I think he was 99, so he's 1% worse than the average hitter since the trade deadline. Yeah. And I think besides that, the second lowest one was like 117, meaning 17% better than the average hitter. And I think like Harper and Turner were close to like, they were closer to like 170 than they were to 120. So like you're getting guys to perform 50, 60% better than the average hitter in the league. And that's what you kind of needed them to do when you not sat still at the trade deadline, but prioritize the starting pitching aspect.
Yeah, as long as this group stays healthy over the last 3 weeks, I feel really good about them going into the postseason. But let's talk about the other side of the ball kind of going into the postseason. And we talk about this every episode, and every episode it changes because outside of Zach Wheeler, these guys have just been all over the place. Zach Wheeler's been really hot. His last 15 starts, 2.80 ERA. I've been trying to find out what the hell his ERA is if you take out the Nationals, and I'm really convinced it's way under 3 because it's like 3.5 right now.
It has to be.
I do think it's an entire run less just because they've put up a lot on him and he's not gone deep into those games outside of the one at the Little League World Series where he still went like 6 or 7 with 4 runs. But yeah, so as the Nationals aren't going to be in the playoffs, so I'm not really worried about Zach Wheeler. Michael Lorenzen, who we were making an argument for to be the number 2, it's not happening. Since the no-hitter, his ERA is like close to 10, I think. It's not been good. I know Jack Fritz today on the High Hopes podcast kind of said that they gave him too much time off after the no-hitter. He had 9 days off, and that it might have gotten him too far out of rhythm. I know they were trying to rest him, but it might have been too much. I don't know. I think after they have the doubleheader this upcoming Monday against the Braves, I think after that he'll transition to the bullpen now that Ranger Suarez is back. And Taiwan Walker, I don't know what is going on with him with these first innings, and it kind of leaked in the second inning against the Padres. I mean, he almost blew an 8-1 lead. The bullpen played a role in it, but he kind of started it. Walking a lot of guys and just cannot find a groove in the first inning. So if you give him an opener, in a playoff game, maybe he'll be okay. But I don't know what to make of those two. And Nola, the ERA is 4.55 right now. He got rocked by the Brewers on Saturday. He said he hasn't been good. He actually admitted it, and he seemed kind of pissed. But the pitch clock is going to be in the playoffs now, by the way. They agreed to that. So he's not going to get the benefit of that. So Wheeler is 1. I don't know what the hell you do after that.
Pray.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, no, the thing that drives me crazy with Nola is it's 1 step forward and then like 9 steps backwards. Like
every time we think he's, yeah.
The Washington start was like fine, like 2 or 3 weeks ago to start the homestand. It was fine, like 5 innings, high pitch count, but like a lot of hard contact. Like he labored through it and he got you through 5 1/3 or whatever with like 1 run. And then San Francisco, he was great. And then Milwaukee, and it's like, oh, this is a big series. Not that, like, obviously the Brewers, now the division's a little closer. But, like, at the time, like, Milwaukee was they're in a division race, and they handled us in Philly. So, like, big series to try and get a hold of the tiebreaker, maybe at least win 2 out of 3 and nullify their 2 out of 3 in Philly. And the first, I mean, he got spotted a 2-run lead, and it's like, oh, well, They got him run support, but it seems like every time you spot this guy a lead, that's the problem. Like, he's blown at least 3 5-run leads this year, and then you spot him 2 or 3 the other night. I forget how many it was, and Schwarber hit a leadoff home run, and I think they might have added on one in the second.
It was 2, yeah.
The third inning rolled around, and it's like, oh, Milwaukee just scored 4. It's like,
yeah.
I don't know what his problem is. I don't know if the fastball is just like, I think it's location. Like, it doesn't seem like he's running it off the front hip consistently, and that's always been his big thing, especially like locking up lefties. And now when he's missing it out over the plate, they're home run pitches. But there's just, no matter what, he could have 7 good starts in a row, and if you put him out there in the playoff game, like, I'd be terrified. Like, he was great in September last year and kind of canceled out the Nola can't pitch in big game claims, and I basically forgot about it this year because he can't pitch in any game. Good, like big game, small game, he's been horrible.
Yeah, he's gonna have to prove it to us the next 3 weeks, and I don't know if that's gonna happen. I don't, because even Ranger Suarez has been just so shaky this year. I know he's been banged up for most of the year. It seems like. I mean, he got off to a late start. He didn't make his debut until early May, and then he had this groin problem or whatever it was. So he's clearly been hampered by some things. So if he's healthy, maybe he's better. Honestly, like, Christopher Sanchez is who I trust second most right now, but do you trust him against like Atlanta or the Cubs or the Dodgers? Is the problem. We've been trusting him against, middle of the pack or lower level teams for the most part. Outside of, he had a really good start against the Rays though back in June or whenever that was. But I don't know. This is the problem for me, and the bullpen is starting to show some kinks. Kimbrel blew a couple. Alvarado, I know everyone wants to get on Bohm for blowing the game in Milwaukee last Friday, the 3-run error, but like, Alvarado walked the bases loaded and was hitting dudes and stuff. Like, that needs to stop. The walks need to stop. So Anthony Dominguez actually hasn't been bad. Only 1 run in his last 14 outings. Soto, so hit or miss. His ERA is so bad because when he's missing, it's 3 or 4 runs in 1/3 of an inning. Like, his ERA is like, I think 5 or over it right now. I don't think that's how bad he is, but it's just, you get like 3 or 4 lights out appearances, and then it's 4 runs in 2/3 of an inning. So I don't know. Hoffman's been really good. Strahm, I'm pretty good, but
I don't. Alvarado and Soto, the thing with them is their stuff is so good, but the reason it's so good is because it's so electric, and that oftentimes goes with like, I have no idea where it's going.
That's true.
So like, if they could kind of just get Alvarado back on one of those like runs that he was on last year, where it's like, hey, just go out there and just throw your 99 right down the middle and don't worry about anything. Like, even if they just do that with Soto, that'd be great. But I don't know how likely it is. You talked about Hoffman. I saw a tweet today, and I didn't like know if it was just like satire and stuff. So I just looked it up on Baseball Reference. On the road, Jeff Hoffman has 20 1/3 innings pitched, and his ERA is 0.
Oh, wow. I did not know that. Wow.
At home, he has 24 innings pitched, and his ERA is a 4.5, but on the road, 21 games, 20 1/3, 12 hits, 2 runs. Neither of the 2 runs are earned.
So he's the JT Realmuto of pitching.
Yeah, if you look at the advanced stats, it's interesting because his batting average on balls in play at home is 208, but on the road it's 273. So like, guys have more success putting it in play against him on the road, but then opponents' OPS plus on the road is a 23, meaning they're 77% worse than the average hitter.
I wonder if that has to do with the size of the ballparks. Obviously, Citizens Bank Park is a little on the smaller side.
I mean, he came in Milwaukee the other night.
Though, but
he came in Milwaukee the other night, the night that Bo made the error, and he came in bases loaded, 1 out, and got a huge strikeout on a guy who went yard earlier in the game and then got his ground ball that he needed to, and Bohm just botched it.
Yeah.
Again, Alvarado can't walk the bases loaded in that situation, but like
Right.
Hoffman did his job.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, I don't know. I still wish they would have. I don't know if they're going to bring up this Orion Kerkering, who's been tearing it up in the minors. He's probably a better, I don't want to say better option than Bilotti because he's obviously not as experienced, but his stuff probably plays better at this point. So maybe they make a move here in the next couple of weeks, see what he's got. I know putting a rookie right into the playoffs would be a little interesting, but you probably could use another righty.
Bilotti's been there. That's the only thing. Like Bilotti pitched some playoff innings last year. Like they weren't insanely high leverage, but like I don't even know if you give Connor Brogdon another look because like
I don't think so.
He too pitched playoff innings last year, but I think that Brogdon would be up at this point now if they actually considered giving him another look just for the sake of keeping guys fresh.
I think so.
Like you're obviously not going to go to Connor Brogdon over Craig Kimbrell in an August meaningful game, but at the same time, like in these 4-5 run games, like yesterday they didn't use him, but like Kimbrell got up to stretch when it was 5-1 and a guy on second. It's like he's over his career high or approaching career highs from 2012. Like you don't need to have him stretch even.
I know it's I know,
but I don't know. It is what it is. I get at this point the wild card race is close as far as securing home field advantage, so you want to use your big guns, but at the same time, you are 95% in for October, so you have to kind of look ahead to that.
Yeah, so to kind of end this here, I want to talk about kind of the big worry with the Phillies right now, and that's the Chicago Cubs, who have been red hot. I swear they don't lose. I mean, I think that they're like 20-something games over 500 the last 2 months or something since they decided to. They were on that winning streak right before the deadline, and then they didn't sell.
Their playoff odds graph is pretty crazy.
Yeah, they went from like everyone was saying they were going to be like they were the most intriguing seller because they had Bellinger and Stroman and all these guys, and now they bought some bats and are going for it. But there's two reasons why they concern me. So the Phillies, like I said, a game and a half up on them in the first wild card, technically 2.5 because of the tiebreaker. The half game thing should be sorted out on Monday when the Phillies have the doubleheader. But they're playing. Yeah. Okay. They play tonight?
Yeah, the Cubs play tonight.
Okay. So tonight that could get to. They could play well enough to push the Phillies out of the first spot into the second spot. And outside of, as you just mentioned, Hoffman and Realmuto, the majority of this team is playing a lot better at home than the road, especially Harper and especially Harper, actually. I'll just leave it there. All the other guys too. But obviously, like what we said from the record, they're 500 at home on the road and what, 41 and 26 at home. So obviously there's difference there. The second problem is the Cubs could play so good down the stretch here. They're only a game and a half behind Milwaukee. And we just talked about Milwaukee. Milwaukee is by far, in my opinion, the worst matchup for the Phillies in a 3-game series in the NL. Because they'll just throw Burns, Woodruff, Peralta, and the back end of their bullpen, all of a sudden, like Holby Milner's good. They have Chafin, who I don't understand why the Diamondbacks acquired a closer and then traded him. Why wouldn't you just want both of them? But whatever. And they have obviously Devin Williams in the back end. Their bullpen's loaded. Their starting rotation's loaded. Their offense doesn't scare me, but it's a lot of scrappy hitters. Like they got Mark Hanna and Carlos Santana, and those are like, you know, the prototypical baseball player right now, like high OBP guys and that kind of stuff. Willie Adames hits a ton of home runs. They play good defense. Like that's the one team to me the Phillies just cannot, I think, match up with well because it's hard. You can't like slugfest them really. Like the Braves and the Dodgers both have some problems with pitching right now. Like I feel like you could slugfest them. The Cubs, that Steele dude is really good. But after him, there's a significant drop off in their rotation at bullpen. So you could slugfest with them. You can't slugfest with the Brewers. So the Brewers, and that would likely be on the road too, because Milwaukee has the tiebreaker over the Phillies. So the Cubs being so hot is bad for so many reasons right now.
Yeah, and you want to talk about, hopefully they're in Arizona this week. They have 4 in Arizona, and you want to talk about a team that wouldn't be fun in a 3-game series. Just looking at Arizona, tomorrow the Cubs get Zach Gallen, and Saturday they get Merrill Kelly.
Mm-hmm.
So like those 2 guys have been insane this year. So hopefully, maybe they split in Arizona. Maybe they lose 3 out of 4. The Cubs do have a relatively favorable schedule. They're in 4 in Arizona, 3 in Colorado, 3 back in Arizona, and they have 6 straight in between Pittsburgh and Colorado at home. So that's 6 favorable games. And then they do finish the year on a 6-game road trip in Atlanta, but in Milwaukee. Milwaukee's good, like we just said, but that series can ultimately be for the division and ultimately be for who the Phillies play.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Won't be particularly fun for us. And again, the Phillies have to kind of cement their playoff position. Like, just don't go 0-21 or whatever, which you can't really put past them because the first 2 games of September were excruciating. But, Chicago's scary, more so because of the havoc that they can cause in the standings. I'm not as worried about playing against them as you are. Obviously, Bellinger's having an MVP type caliber season, and that lineup's playing well as a unit. But I mean, Swanson typically kills the Phillies, but he's not having the year that he had last year, to say. And aside from that, I don't know, just looking at their lineup, Ian Happ's fine, but Nico Horner's always been a below average hitter his first 2 or 3 years in the major leagues. He's been a really good defender, but it's kind of you get the plus gold glove from him and whatever he gives you offensively. Candelario's been a good addition for them. I think he's fallen off a little bit compared to his first half in the first week or 2 that he had with the Cubs. Just looking at his fantasy production for me, I don't think he's kind of been as good as he was earlier in the year. And the bullpen's been good, but they've kind of just been like how we're saying, do you trust Chris Sanchez in a playoff series against a good team? They've kind of just been filling it in with homegrown talent in the rotation since Stroman got hurt. And it's yes, those guys have been really good pitching to a 2.7 to a borderline 3 ERA. But do you trust that if you have to come to Philadelphia on the road for a 3-game series? Justin Steele's probably going to finish top 5 in the Cy Young. He's been good all year. I don't know about these Javier Assads and JP Wick guys that might pitch against us. That the jury's out on them.
Yeah, I agree. The way they mash a little bit scares me. But like I said, I think the Phillies are way more suited for a shootout than trying to win these games 2-1. So that's all we got for this one. So we've got a 7-game homestand up here. We got 3 against Miami this weekend. Alcantara and Soler both just went on the IL. So the Phillies were going to face Alcantara again, which would have made every series this year they faced him. And I think going back to
they did last year.
Yeah. So just crazy.
I honestly, Soler's the bigger miss there, in my opinion.
I think
I feel that dude just kills them. They've been pretty good in games that Sandy started the last 2 years. They hung 10 on him earlier in the season, and he's been much better since then. But he dominated them for 7 innings, 8 innings in Miami this year, and they pulled him, and then Pache hit a home run off AJ Puck. So Soler just hits huge home runs against them, and he just hits big home runs in general. Back to his Braves World Series MVP days. So when I saw that last night on the broadcast, I was more excited than Sandy being out because the Marlins still have arms.
Yeah. The 3 against Miami this weekend, and then 4 against the Braves, a doubleheader on Monday. That's a huge measuring stick series for this team. It's been a while since they faced Atlanta. It's home. We're going to see how the pitching holds up, especially in the doubleheader. But that's kind of the series where we're going to find out if this team probably has what it takes to make another deep run or not.
Yeah, and I think the nice thing about the schedule is, like, at the start of the year, we're like, wow, September is a gauntlet. Like, last year we had the easiest September ever, it seemed, just schedule-wise. They didn't make it easy, but on paper it should have been. And going into this year, we're like, wow, like, do your work early, kind of steady the ship, and give yourself a cushion come September. Well, they've given themselves a 5.5 game cushion on the playoff spot, and San Diego stunk this year, and we handled them in September. Miami's feisty, but then, like, St. Louis has been awful, and the last 11 games are 7 against the Mets, who are still kind of like a kryptonite. Like, we've done okay against them this year, but, like, you're not getting any of the firepower that we expected the Mets to have.
Right.
And so your last 11 games are against the Mets and the Pirates. So, like, be respectable against basically Atlanta and Miami, and then handle the rest, and you should win 90 games.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's 26 left. So they only have to go 13-13 to get to 90. So, I mean, honestly, like, 90 should be your
90,
floor, honestly.
92, 93?
Yeah, I think they could get to 92. I mean, that would be nice. I think that secures the first wild card spot because, as you mentioned, the Cubs and the Brewers are going to beat up a little bit on each other, and the Cubs have some other tough series this weekend. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. We should probably be back after this homestand to see where things stand. So, yeah, that's going to do it for this one, and we'll see you next week.